going to talk a little bit about something that we touched on before, which is that you can break apart your equations to make them a little bit easier to add. We can do this with subtraction as well, and we'll talk about that too. So we're going to talk about breaking apart equations. Now remember that equations that's your problem. That's where you see something like 15 plus 2 or something along those lines. We'll go through that. We're going to do it for addition and subtraction. Now remember again, addition is counting on and subtraction is taking away. So those are important things to remember. With addition, your numbers are getting bigger. With subtraction, the end result, the whole at the end should be smaller than what you started with. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's try one of these. Let's try one laid out like instead of like this. Now this is, you're gonna see this a lot in your math books. It'll look something like this, but you may also see your equation laid out like this. It's the same thing. In this case, the answer would just go underneath that line, where on the left, your answer would go next to the equal sign. But let's break it apart. Let's say this one looked a little bit confusing to you. Let's break it apart. So this is how we can break it apart. So if we look at that 15, not as 15, but of it as its parts, then it would be this. And I'm just going to draw the circles to make it a little bit easier to see what they are. 15 is 10 and 5. So if you break 15 apart into 10 and 5, then what you really have is a problem that looks a little bit like this: 5 plus 5. And that's these two numbers right here. So 5 plus 5 equals 10. Now you still have this 10 over here left over though. So then what you're really doing is 10 plus 10 as your next step. Now, if 10 plus 10 still looks difficult, you could break that apart further as well, but really you don't have to, because with 10 plus 10, what you're really doing here is you're adding the zeros. So 0 plus 0 is still 0, and 1 plus 1 is 2. So that means that 10 plus 10 is 20, and 15 plus 5 is 20. Both of those equations have the same sum. All we did was break them apart a little bit differently. We'll try a couple more of these as well. Let's try a quick problem using subtraction. Subtraction, one that may look a little bit challenging but isn't. Let's do 17 minus 3. Well, you could count back from 17 3 places, right? And some of you, that will be how you do it, and that may be the easiest way of doing it. But there's another way to do this. We can break it apart, okay? So we know, and I'm going to use the circles again, that 17 is 10, because you see that 1 in the tens place there, and a 7 in the ones place. That means that 17 is 10 and 7 put together. 10 plus 7 is 17. So when you break it apart like that, then what you're really going to be looking at is 7 minus 3 first. And now you just count back: 7, 6, 5, 4. And then you've got 4. So you would put the 4 right here. And then all you're doing at this point, all you're doing is taking this 1 right here and dropping it down. So that means that 17 minus 3 is 14. And eventually you're going to get to a place where you see a problem lined up like that on some of our worksheets, and you're not going to feel intimidated or scared by it, because you're going to get used to seeing them in this format. And in some ways it's easier, and I'm going to show you why it's a little bit easier too. Because even if I don't draw those circles and break apart the number in the same way, which I could, because I could do the same thing here, right? I could say 16 is actually 10 and 6, because you see the 1 in the tens place and the 6 in the ones place. So 16 is really 10 minus 6. Or excuse me, 10 plus 6. But what you can do here is look at the problem as it is. And let's look at it lined up this way and see if we can figure it out without pulling everything apart. Okay? So 6 plus 4. You know you can just count on from 6 4 times. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then what you have to do is, because you can't put the 10 down here, you have to carry the 1 up to the top here. And that now makes 1 plus 1, which is 2. So 16 plus 4 is 20. Now that's the same thing that we would have done over here, okay, if we broke it apart. So if we did 6 plus 4 here, we would still end up with 10. And then you'd have to go back and say, oh, but we have 10 left, and 10 plus 10 equals 20. So 16 plus 4 equals 20, and 10 plus 10 equals 20. Okay, so now let's say you have something that looks hard, like 18 minus 7. We're going to do the same thing here. Remember, we can break that apart. We know that 18 is 10 plus 8. Now, if we just look at it over here, we can do the same thing. 8 minus 7. Now, you're going to count backward 7 times from 8. So 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Which you should know just by looking at it, and you will eventually, because 8 is only one place after 7 if you were counting on. So that means that 8 minus 7 is 1. Now, in this case, because it's subtraction, the easiest part here is all you're going to do is take that 1, drop it down, and your answer is 11. 18 minus 7 is 11. You could have done the same thing over here, right? With our broken apart numbers. So 8 minus 7 is 1. Now you know you still have 10 left, so now you're going to have to do 10 plus 1 equals 11. Let's do one more example. This one's a little bit more challenging. It's 15 minus 8. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to try to break this apart again, okay? We're going to break apart 15. We're going to break apart into its 2 parts. The 1 again tells us that it is at 10. That's the 1 in the tens place, so it's 10 plus 5. 5 is in the ones place. Now we have 8 left. Now, here's the thing. We can't subtract 8 from 5, so the number on the ones place, like we normally would. We can't do that because you can't take 8 away from 5. There isn't enough there. So what we can do, though, is we can take 8 away from 10. Now, if we do 10 minus 8, this is a little bit easier, because most of you would know that counting up from 8 2 times will bring you to 10. So if you count up from 8 2 times, 8 plus 2 equals 10. That means that 10 minus 8 equals 2. So now you've got 2, but you still have this 5 right here. You still have that 5 left over. So then what you're going to have to do is add these two. 2 plus 5. Now again, counting up or counting on from 5, 2 places would be 5, 6, 7. So 2 plus 5 is 7, which means that our answer is 15 minus 8 equals 7. Okay, so that was a little bit more challenging, but keep that in mind when you are breaking apart equations like this, where the first number, or the number in the ones place, like right here, is too small to take away your bottom number, okay? So, if you have any questions about this, and we'll go over it a little bit further later as well, but if you have any questions, just let me know.